Question for you. Are you a person who takes accountability? I'm asking this question because, let's be real, when it comes to accountability and responsibility, a lot of us are sort of up in the air. So I wanted to have a conversation with you about what it means to be accountable, not just responsible. Because baby, there is a difference. Hey sunshine, I'm Dr. Donna Oriolo, sex and relationship therapist in the Washington, D.C. metro area, helping black women feel free, fabulous, and effed. Now, where it comes right down to it, there are three main things that I really want to talk about where it comes to accountability, but I fear that first we must get on the same page, which means that I'm starting with a side note that will help to ground this conversation. Now, I'm a girly who likes the operational definition. When you do research, you have to go back to the operational definition, which basically means how are we defining the term here and how are we using the term? This way, I know what I mean and you know what I mean. So when it comes right down to it, there is a difference between accountability and responsibility. Now, here's the thing. The difference is small. It's minute. It's easy to get it wrong. Okay? So accountability means that you are taking stock of the outcome. Responsibility means that now we're talking about the tasks, how we get it done versus what the outcome is. And those things are different. Now, I know they feel the same, but feelings are not facts. They are not the same. That's the long and the short of it. Responsibility is task-oriented. Accountability is outcome-oriented. Not the same. So, now that we know this, the question then becomes, how do we take better accountability? So here are three things that I gave to the people this week in my black feelings that I'm now going to give to you. Number one being, even if it's not your fault, you played a role. I know nobody wants to hear that, but that's one of the things about accountability. You are taking stock and knowing your role in the outcome, not just in what needed to be done, tasks, to reach the outcome. And sometimes it's not our fault. Whatever happened, it ain't our fault, but we did still play a role. Now, I'm going to bring it to you therapy style. Actually, matter of fact, I'm going to give you three examples: micro, meso, and macro. So the micro is the me and you level. It's the one-to-one level. Meso is the you to an organizational level, and then the macro is the you to your government, like big levels, right? So to take it there, starting with the micro, and I know that this one is super fucking unpopular, and I know that people like to use therapy shit to try and weaponize it against other people, so please try to refrain, friend, okay? In therapy, when a couples therapist deals with infidelity, we talk about responsibility and accountability because somebody is responsible for their behaviors, i.e. the cheater, and someone is accountable still to the outcome, the cheatee, or whoever got cheated on. Basically, what I'm saying here is that while both people are responsible for the relationship and accountable to the relationship, where it comes to infidelity, you may not be responsible because you didn't actually do the cheating, but it doesn't mean that you are not accountable to the outcome. So in this case, we ask the question of what role did you play? That is not to say that you are at fault for what happened, but to ask, what were the circumstances that circumstanced to help create this perfect storm? Whatever that is, right? Because sometimes it's based on, point number two, these two types of accountability. Types of accountability, internal and external. Now, it's that internal one that be getting us messed up a little bit. So the external, because we understand this one, is how we are beholden to others, right? So people who are not us, how we are accountable to them. The internal accountability is how you are accountable to you, to your values, to your thoughts, to your feelings, to your beliefs. How are you walking the talk that you be talking, right? Sometimes we are incongruent. And what I mean by that is sometimes we pick the serial cheater. We knew. We picked them anyway. We believed ourselves to be the exception. We are unready to examine the ways in which we played a role in the cheating that we experienced. That is not to say that you are at fault. Again, not fault, right? That there's a difference between fault and the role that was played. And being able to do that means taking accountability. Now, accountability is also above responsibility. Accountability is the larger item here because when you are accountable, you may also be responsible. But when you're responsible, sometimes you're not accountable, right? You are responsible for doing a specific task, not necessarily the outcome of the task. You feel me? I hope you're feeling me. If you are still confused, that's okay, because we're going to go to example number 2, the meso-ish one. So I often talk about, like, for those of you who are, if you know, right? I talk about and do work within that space between sexuality and DEI. I know that DEI is now a bad word, but despite what you think it means, it doesn't mean didn't earn it. It means diversity, equity, and inclusion. Specifically, I do justice, equity, and inclusion work, which makes me a Jedi. But with doing Jedi work, right? Justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion work within the sexuality space. My further expertise is on colorism and texturism and how it impacts mental and sexual health. Now, where it comes right down to it, I spend a lot of time talking about how we show up or don't show up in our own authenticity. Now, if you are a person of color, we have been taught how to play the game, right? We mask, we change our tone, we be switching it up. We be switching it up so that we can be in space with white others and maintain a sense of safety, maintain that jaw, right? So this is where you get the code switching. It's where you get the masking, the ways in which we change who we are in order to appease and to bring comfort to white others. However, what if I told you that you are accountable for the outcomes of some of what you experience as a result? Here's how. While they are responsible for the racist acts that they constantly and ceaselessly commit against others and the dehumanizing that they do toward anyone who is not them, in some ways we are also accountable for switching it up. We are also accountable for masking it down, right? I'm not saying it's not protective. I'm not saying it's not useful. However, how can someone get used to who you are if you're pretending to be something else? It's just a question, right? It's just a question, and a question really that's just for you, not one for us to have a conversation about, because I am a therapist. I'm not your therapist, right? So that's just something for you to consider. It's to say that you are accountable for some of that outcome because you played a role. What role did you play? That's the question that it asks, accountability. Now, on the macro level, that big level, I mean, we could easily just talk about politics, right? So while we are looking at celebrities and all these and politicians even, and saying, hey, y'all are sort of just like going with like business as usual sort of tactics, so are you. We are accountable to the outcome of normalizing some shit that is not okay, right? What that means, like, there's normal, which is regular, humdrum, regular, whatever. Normalization is to make it normal, which is to say it's abnormal. It's outside of the parameters of what should be considered normal, and in some ways that the thing is not okay. Now, when we normalize something, like we're normalizing companies being able to call ICE, we're normalizing that DEI is not something that should be around, normalizing that it's okay for certain people in certain positions of power to act as dictator, that we're normalizing that it is okay for someone to subvert or to be a co-president with somebody. These are things that are being normalized when we act business as usual. When we make it seem like everything is everything. When we just go along with the agenda. That's the role we play, right? That's the role we're playing. And that is our accountability, not just their responsibility to behave well. So we have now gone over the fact that, hey, even if it's not your fault, you play in a role. And now the question is, what role do you play on the micro, meso, and macro levels? We've also discussed the 2 types of accountability. And the thing is pretty simple. Because we don't take accountability, some of us are who we accuse others of being. We talk about people who are playing at revolution. We talk about people who are not really for the cause. We talk about people not taking responsibility for their actions, and yet we don't take account for ours. And here's the thing, here's the secret. Come closer. The power is in the accountability, not just in the responsibility. And what I mean by that is that you have to take accountability. You have to make sure that you are doing things that are actually in alignment. It means that you are accountable for your learning. You're accountable for your knowing. You're accountable for your actions. And making sure that your actions and your beliefs, that your actions and your thoughts, that your actions and your values are actually in alignment. But that also means that you are accountable to challenging why you have the beliefs you have and how you came to the values that you have. You are accountable. And that's where the power is. And I wanted to have this conversation because there is power in accountability. If we take accountability for our lives, for our choices, for our behaviors, etc., we see how we are part of the problem, and thus we are also part of the solution. When we are looking for someone else to constantly take responsibility on the micro, meso, and macro levels, when we say, nope, it's your fault, and your fault alone, it means that we give up our power and then say, well, you got to fix it without doing our part. Taking accountability also means taking stock and changing up. And I know that shit feels hard because sometimes we are simply not ready to take accountability, because then we also have to take responsibility for what we are doing. But the thing is, you can make change. That's the reason for this post. I wanted you to know that you can make change and that you do have power. Because if you think that you're too small to make a difference, you haven't spent the night with a mosquito. And baby, I have. It's not as fun as you would think. It's not fun at all, actually. And yet, so much was learned in that very thing. And that is an African proverb. And I want you to go with it, because I want you to consider, in what ways can you begin to take accountability? What would taking accountability look like in small steps, right? What are 3 things that you can do over the next week to begin taking accountability? That's all I got for you today, and I'm going to repeat that proverb one more time. If you think you're too small to make a difference, you haven't spent the night with a mosquito. All right. I'll see you next time. Remember, discourse, not disrespect. Keep it cute. Bye.